Trustee Chinwell? Here. Trustee Gibson?
Here.
Trustee Kwong? Trustee Martin?
Here.
Trustee Osterly?
Here.
Trustee Silver?
Here.
Trustee Wayne?
Here.
Student Trustee Bradley?
Are there any public comment on closed session agenda items? Great. We're now going to recess to closed session. Item C1, Government Code 54956.8, conference with real property negotiator, district negotiator Kansas Jones, negotiating parties, Anaheim Commerce Investments Incorporated. Recess to close.
Thank you, Doctor.
Is that still?
Audrey, can you make sure?
Let me
you
hold
get
it, right?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll
Okay.
just.
Oh, it's good. We're good.
It's good?
Yeah.
Just
I love having the
confirm
light.
though, please, Audrey, can you just
I'm
confirm?
sorry, say that.
Because that
Just
green
confirm.
light is on.
I will
Just-
absolutely.
Perfect, all right, we are back. We are convening an open session. Report of action, we have no items to report of actions for closed session. We're going to move on to do 2 roll call.
All right, trustee Chinwell? Here. Trustee Gibson?
Here.
Trustee Kwong? Trustee Martin?
Here.
Trustee Osterling?
Here.
Trustee Silver?
Here.
Trustee Wayne?
Here.
Student trustee Bradley? Here.
Okay, next item, pledge of allegiance. Trustee Martin, would you lead us?
Flag's right over here. You'll join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item, land acknowledgement. Trustee Silver.
Yes. Pasadena City College is a learning community within the indigenous homelands of people who have been known as the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians of the Shishiquanga Village and Quiche Nation. Tonight we acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this land on which we gather. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that the United States as we know it was built at the often fatal expense of forcefully enslaved Black people. We are indebted to their labor and the labor of many Black and brown bodies that continue to work in the shadows for our collective benefit. PCC and its faculty, staff, and students recognize that we are all simultaneously teachers, learners, and guests on these lands. This acknowledgement is a small part of an ongoing process of working to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social justice, systemic change, and anti-racism.
Thank you. Our next item, do we have any public comment on agenda items? We have no public comments. Next item, D6, satellite campus presentation. B.B. Jones.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Ramirez and I wanted to give some sort of context based on the resolution that you all will see before you this evening. Next slide. Yay. So we really wanted to set the context for the board related to our vision for satellite campus in our southeast area of the district. With ongoing, I think our historic presence in this area for the college has been really profound, and we're wanting to make sure that we're in a position to continue to increase educational access to residents in that area, serve the community where they're at. We want to make sure that as not only our students but local residents who may want to take a variety of different course offerings, that they are not needing to travel to the Colorado campus or our Foothill campus. So it was really important that the board sort of set that strategy not only in our facilities master plan, but also as direction when our lease agreement with El Monte ended. And so we have actively been working to make sure that we look in that area to find available properties, and we've done so and would like to present one to you all this evening. We want to continue to develop enrollment opportunities for this campus, and if you think about it, we looked back at our data, and in the very first year, the Rosemead campus, that enrollment on that campus doubled within 1 year. And so the possibility of what we can do to serve the community and what we can do, we have amazing faculty who've done wonderful outreach in the community that we'd like to get back there. And we think it's been demonstrated historically in the past. And we always want to make sure that we're committed to delivering to our facilities strategic planning process, which expresses this really visionary goal of serving our members in a variety of communities, one being PCC Northwest, and then continuing to serve the Rosemead area. Here you'll see a little heat map in terms of where our students come from, and you'll see we're right in the heart. There is a lot of good sort of area and attraction where we can continue to serve that area. We want to make sure that we're often showing sort of interest levels and where our students come from. Next slide. These are some quotes that we pulled out of our facilities strategic plan. You know, the Rosemead campus, the recommendation came that it really needed to be expanded. So that was one of the goals of the 2020 approved plan, and that we're able to offer a full range of services there. So we're making sure that, again, we're serving the community and they don't need to leave that area to get those services. Purchasing a facility was recommended, largely because it's very difficult to lease facilities because there's not a lot of opportunity or flexibility in what's offered. But when we own something, we're able to then plan strategically around that, and then, you know, for our future needs, our current needs. And so the recommendation in the strategic plan was to look at finding an area to purchase. The satellite, future satellite facilities can offer general education classes to degree applicable majors. We want to minimize travel and transportation areas. So again, the goal is not to have to shuttle students back and forth between any one of our satellite campuses, that if we can offer a full suite of services, that was the recommendation of the strategic plan. And then all necessary student service functions and standalone small centers for general education, including tutoring, that those things were important for us to be thoughtful of as we're working towards you know, a satellite campus concept. This is the property that is on the resolution. There are 3 parcels of land that are described, and it gives you sort of an example of the educational entities that are in the area that we also actually already currently serve. And so if you look, the PCC news site is the gold area. You see PCC site, you see how the close proximity is to Rosemead High School, the proximity to Muscatel Middle School, and then where our former PCC location used to be. And so if you think about it, we have served in this area for many, many years, and it makes a lot of sense for us then to look and find a way to continue to serve in a very similar location, because I think the presence in the community is learned and expected. So those 3 parcels, those are the parcel numbers and the square footage of the area. It's a little bit over 1.5 acres. That then allows us to do what we envision for that area, which Dr. Ramirez is going to share some ideas from the instructional perspective.
So as a new site, we want to make sure that we capitalize on the space and look at it not just as a site, but really as a center. So for us to have a center, it really needs to have full capacity or full service for our students. If we do achieve center status, that means that we can get additional apportionment for that, right? We get additional funding for having that status. That means that we would want to have a full complementary of services for students, which includes anywhere between 16 and 24 classrooms. That includes things that allows us to offer CTE programs there, allows us to offer lab science or wet labs there, that we have multi-purpose space to offer anything from maybe a dance class, a yoga class, weightlifting class, potentially not necessarily an athletic program per se, but still offer classes in health, nutrition, and some kind of activity. The labs are really important, that they are multi-purpose labs, so we want to make sure that in that design, they're labs that can not only support things like chemistry, anatomy, but maybe even geology, geography, oceanography. That will require things that include gas plumbing, electrical, extensive electrical, and things like that. We want to make sure that we have support services for students. So that means that we would need some kind of a tutoring or success center, some kind of library support center, at some level, some kind of a health services, because students there will be paying health fees, so we want to have some amount of service there for students. Obviously counseling, personal counseling, psychological counseling, support programs depending on the needs of the community. So do we need to have an EOPS center, a CalWork center? You know, we would need to do an assessment of what the population there is going to be looking for to make sure that we offer those services. As far as computer labs, we want to also make those multi-purpose, right? So computer labs that can service a number of programs, not only computer science or CIT, but potentially some pre-engineering, some CAD programs, architecture, And then looking at the LMI data for the next 10 years. So we know technology's big, so we want to make sure that we have a good infrastructure to support a good technology program, whether it's in computer science, again, engineering, architecture, that do require that infrastructure from the very beginning, and that it's multifaceted so that we can offer it for a number of programs or services. That particular location is really important in that, as you know, we've already offered classes in that. We have relationships with our local K-12 partners. Muscatel was one of the first schools that offered our non-credit math courses to the middle school, so that's really important. We have that pipeline, and we definitely have a way to expand it there. That community will definitely benefit from not only our traditional college program, but what we can do throughout, outside of that, whether it's non-credit, offering to middle school, high school dual enrollment partnerships. I did a little bit of work on, just how much FTS we would generate. So if we're looking at 18 classrooms at a peak, right, offering classes from morning to night, Monday through Friday, at a class size of about 35, we're looking at about 3,200 FTS a year, which is pretty extensive for a campus that size, right? We're talking about $14 million worth of FTS. That's just on the enrollment
18
side.
classrooms, you said?
Huh?
18 or 16, did you say? 18?
18, so that's just about, and that's at full capacity if it's all classes are at 35 students.
And how does that compare to our former PCC Rosemead at its peak in terms of how many FTEs we generated?
I don't remember honestly off the top of my head what the peak was for that. I don't think we were close to 3,000, not annually.
Remembering that that only had 12 classrooms, right, that we could actively program.
And it's also the type of programming that we can do there.
Right.
We were very limited to the types of classes we couldn't offer, lab classes. I think that when we're looking at building a site from the ground up, what we want to be intentional is about the types of programs that we're going to offer. So we'll definitely have our general education, our IGETC classes there, so we need to make sure we have our traditional chalk and talk classrooms, that we have our lab classrooms. But if we're going to have a full-fledged, for example, not that we would, but let's say nursing, well, that's a different footprint, right? Versus if I'm looking at architecture, that's going to have a different footprint. So we want to make sure that the programming that we put there is from beginning to end. We want a student to be able to start and finish their entire academic career at that site without having to travel to the Colorado campus.
May I make a suggestion, because you have articulated this so well, is to juxtapose Old Rosemead with what we want. So like the Old Rosemead, this is what we have, so that people know that this is very much of an upgrade, right? And what was missing. Because I think there's this nostalgia about the Old Rosemead, that it checked all the boxes, when maybe in reality it was missing
Some limitations.
right? And so if you don't mind crystallizing that, for the public or just for the internal stakeholders, I think we would see that this is, even though it's a little bit more costly, that the ROI on this will be tremendous.
And our lease prevented us from doing any kind of adult education, right?
Yeah.
Right, we were not allowed to do ESL classes, for example, to the community. That was part of the agreement because of their adult education program.
Yes.
So what we tried to do, so from a budgetary standpoint, our responsibility is then to make sure that as we're projecting sort of a future, we used both previous Rosemead's budgets as well as our CEC Foothill Center budgets to kind of think through staffing costs, faculty costs, utilities, supplies and expenses, transportation, back and forth through Colorado if needed. So it's a little bit over $7 million from an operational budget. Now, we would be able to identify and address some of those pieces from the previous Rosemead allocations, and so that's great. But it is larger. I mean, we're talking about a larger facility, and so we've grown that budget bigger. So we've added then the FTS target just to break even is a little over 1,500 FTS. So thinking of Laura's vision around 18 classrooms, we would be able to easily exceed our FTS generation to meet that budgetary need. So we wanted to make sure that everyone understands that while we're talking about a new center, there are some operational and budgetary pieces that we need to be planning for so that we're ready when that site comes online.
Now, for the staffing, faculty, are you anticipating that this would be majority tenure or adjunct?
I mean, so our fawn number derives, so our sort of, of course, we would attract and throw to Laura, our faculty obligation number is driven by our, I mean, how many full-time faculty is a calculation that's driven by our enrollment. And so, on the one hand, we know how much faculty we need to have on that. Laura, do you want to speak a little bit more to?
I think it's really important that as we move towards putting programming at that site, we need to have full-time faculty. And you know, I had a very similar experience at another institution where we had a center, and one of the biggest challenges is that we don't want to have a center or a location where we have only part-time faculty that don't have a strong presence there. And the reason is that when you have full-time faculty, that's where you have the shared governance dialogue, that's where you have things like student clubs, that's where you have that culture that starts to develop and create, you know, the culture of that site. It's going to be different. It will be different than the Colorado campus or the Foothill campus. So I think we need to start, as we're planning the programming going over there, we need to allocate full-time faculty over there depending on the nature of the programs that we're going to be offering. At the Rosemead site, we had a few full-time faculty there. I think we have one in the audience over that had a very strong presence there. And that makes a very big difference. You know, serving as a coordinator, working with the faculty, with the staff, that's critical. So we would need to plan what and how many faculty would transition there, and or by the time this comes up and running, we may be at a new fawn, right? And so if we do that, we would hire faculty specifically for that site.
And so, in other words, this center may spur more positions for full-time faculty.
Absolutely.
So here's where we're at. This evening you all have a resolution on the agenda that we are recommending for approval. We'll get into the city planning process, which requires a public hearing that we'll have in early 2024. We'll go through the environmental study, permits and rezoning, which we've received a lot of information from the city of Rosemead on. We'll go into construction and of course occupancy and operations. So that's where we're at today. We've got really lined up through 24 into early 25 to get through that permits zoning piece and then get into construction. Of course, we always want to end with our community impact. And so these are, you know, council members that have previously shared their commitment to PCC being in the community. And so if you just think about, it's about the community education and making sure that we're creating better people that serve in our community, which we understand and know that Pasadena City College can help contribute to. And, you know, the Mayor Pro Tem sort of shared, thank you so much for what you're doing for our community. And so there's definitely interest and commitment for Pasadena City College to be back in that area, serving their community in a way that we're unable to do now, but that we will be able to do so in greater demand in the future. And so with that, if there are no other questions, then that ends our presentation.
Any questions? Great. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to move on to action item E1, resolution number 795, authorizing the purchase of real property.
I move we approve.
Moved by Trustee Silver,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Martin. Any discussion?
Can we read it?
Can you read the,
Would you like to or should I?
I don't wear my glasses.
Rather than read the whole thing, it says this is
Sure.
amended. Can you just tell us what the amendments are from what we last saw?
Just the number. We had,
Okay.
unfortunately, I had identified the wrong resolution number, and so
Okay.
we've corrected that. It was 794, and now it's
That's the only
795.
change.
That is the only
Okay.
change.
All right. You don't need to read it and then find out.
Okay.
Are we ready for a vote then? All right, I'm going to call the vote for this item. Trustee Bradley? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Our next item for this special meeting is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
VP Jones.